Hi guys, I'm Diaz and you're watching the SUV Battle channel.
9 cars, including the Hyundai Santa Fe, Kia Sorento, the Mitsubishi Outlander with a 3-liter V6, and the Ford Explorer will overcome 2 obstacles, which are already familiar to the viewers of my channel from videos with Nissan Pathfinder, the Toyota Land Cruiser Prado, and the Prado Taos, which should soon appear in the USA market. This means you can draw parallels and compare the performance of different vehicles in similar conditions. And before we get to the first obstacle, I recommend you to subscribe to the channel, because in the next video, we will have 8 popular crossovers of 2018. The Toyota RAV4, Nissan Rogue, Subaru Forester, Mazda CX-5, Hyundai Tucson, and Volkswagen Tiguan. Let's go back to our participants. The order of drives is formed according to 2 criteria: the engine power, from weak to powerful, and the type of tires, friction or studded tires. And since cars have different tires and different drivers, of course, this test is not fair. Therefore, lovers of ideal conditions should close this video, and all adequate viewers who are able to draw conclusions based on the information received, make yourself comfortable. We're kicking off. The first to go is the 2019 Hyundai Santa Fe with a 2.4-liter gasoline engine. The car drives up a step with the front wheel, followed by active slipping of the unloaded wheels. The loaded wheels of the Hyundai did not slip and make a rotation corresponding to the distance covered. The car stops with the rear left wheel raised, some wheel spin, and the car continues driving. Now, the front left wheel and the rear right wheel have a tight press against the ground. The unloaded wheels are actively slipping again until the traction control system can provide enough torque to the loaded wheels. If you look closely, you can see the typical rocking of the car. It is the electronics that slow down the slipping wheels, and the Santa Fe very easily drove out of the last obstacle. At the exit, the car almost stops on a slope. Some minor slipping of the unloaded wheels, and the Hyundai drives on. I specifically drew attention to this because there will be something interesting ahead. The next participant is the 2014 Chevrolet Captiva with a 3-liter gasoline engine. The Captiva is driving per the same line as the Santa Fe. The front right wheel presses against the climb, and then the unloaded wheels slip under the clatter of the braking system, which tries to create more resistance on the slipping wheels so that the loaded wheels get more torque. Now the driver decided to limit the automatic transmission at the first gear. But the result is still the same. Even having shifted to the left toward a simpler line, the Captiva cannot conquer this obstacle. Therefore, the driver turned off the electronic stability program. That's what you would expect. If previously the electronics at least somehow tried to help overcome this obstacle, then with the ESP off, the car simply slips. The driver has now reactivated the ESP and turned on the hill descent control. The driver keeps the RPMs around 2,500, and you can see how the car jerks because of the traction control system. But the result is still the same, even in spite of the simpler line. Having tried all possible options, the very last thing remains: to get a little more acceleration. The Captiva, without stopping, continues to drive to the second part of the obstacle. Unlike the previous obstacle, 2 diagonally located wheels are now loaded, the front left wheel and the rear right one. The Chevrolet is actively slipping, and the traction control system is not effective enough in this situation. And if the Santa Fe was able to drive out of this position, then for Captiva, this is an impossible task. so the Chevy rolls back to gain acceleration. The third participant is the Kia Sorento with a 3.5-liter gasoline V6. The car stops at the starting position with the front wheel pressing against the climb. The unloaded wheels rotate several times at a low speed. The engine RPMs rise, which means that the wheels must receive more torque. The loaded front wheel spins, and with a slight drift to the left, the car drives forward. The next test is a stop with the rear left wheel hanging. The driver keeps the steady throttle at low revs. The traction control system is effective even without high revs, so the Kia drives on with confidence. The car occupies the same position as the two previous participants. Smooth throttle at low revs and with minimal wheel slip, the Sorento drives up to the final test. Except for a slight wheel spin, we can say that the Kia also overcame this test without any difficulties because Sorento practically stopped before conquering it. The fourth participant is the 2008 Honda Pilot with a 3.5-liter gasoline engine. The Honda gets to the starting position and we see the slipping of the unloaded wheels. The car drifts slightly to the left. The load on the front right wheel has become lower, which means less torque is needed to turn the wheel. And then, an unexpected surprise. The Pilot is stuck between the first and the second obstacle. The Honda's both front wheels are actively spinning, but the rear right wheel remains still. And here, the matter is in the grip of the tire, and now it is clearly not enough. The driver locks the central clutch and deactivates the traction control. But the result is still the same, activating traction control back. Having tried all the options, the Pilot backs up to take a little acceleration. The car practically jumps over the second obstacle, stopping at the very end of it. Therefore, let's drive further. The Honda stops at the starting position like the previous participants. Actively slipping with unloaded wheels, the Pilot drives forward and stops in with the front right wheel high in the air. A little slipping, and the car started conquering the snowy hill. It would seem like the Pilot has already climbed the hill, but do you remember the lack of tire grip on this Honda? This is a great demonstration of how tires can influence the behavior of a car in the snow. But Honda's traction control system has shown good performance, keeping in mind the year of the car's production. But it doesn't make sense if the tires have no grip. Next participant. Contestant number 5, the 2008 Subaru Tribeca with a 3.6-liter gasoline engine. The car drives to the starting spot and presses against the step with the front right wheel. Active slipping of the unloaded wheels, and the Subaru drifts to the left on a flatter part of the slope. The Tribeca spins its wheels again, but the loaded wheels are no longer showing any signs of activity. A very strange behavior. The driver has now deactivated the electronic stability and the vehicle dynamics control systems. The slipping wheels are more actively clamped by the brakes, while the front left wheel rotates more than during the previous attempt. The topic of rubber comes to the fore again. The Subaru has 3 wheels slipping, and the car is driving forward very slowly. The test with hanging of the rear left wheel. The front right wheel barely touches the ground. The traction control system grips the slipping wheels, causing the car to even shake and spin the loaded wheels. But because of the rubber, the Tribeca crawls forward quite lazily. the final test. The traction control system worked great, and Tribeca, with a little slip, moves on to the next stage. The car easily continued to move from this position, but climbing up the hill became a problem. Moreover, the Tribeca drove up there using the momentum, while the Hyundai Santa Fe easily continued to move after full stop on the slope. That's what the proper tire type and condition means. To be honest, I didn't give much meaning to this aspect before. The next participant is a 2014 Toyota Highlander with a 3.5-liter V6 gasoline engine and studded tires. The unloaded wheels do not pick up high rotational speed due to the interference of the electronics. And judging by the idle loaded wheels, it can be concluded that the traction control system is ineffective. And this is what is going to happen if you turn off the traction control system. The unloaded wheels are rotating at high speed. This might help to overcome the obstacle if the car had the momentum, but in this case, it is useless. The driver has now activated the interaxle clutch lock and engaged the traction control system. You can hear how the braking system works, slowing down the slipping wheels, but unfortunately, that's not enough. The driver decided to disable the traction control system, leaving the central clutch locked. The front left wheel digs a hole in the ground, but the position of the car has not changed at all. Let's activate the traction control system back, and the Highlander rolls back to gain some acceleration. The second test. Well, being already aware of the specifics of Toyota's all-wheel drive system, this is quite an expected result. Disabling the traction control does not change anything, but it had to roll back to take a slight acceleration. Then, actively slipping wheels will come in very handy. The final section. All electronic systems of the car are brought back to the standard mode. The traction control system is turned on, and the forced blocking of the interaxle clutch is turned off. This obstacle is no easier than the previous two, so don't expect a miracle. The unloaded wheels are slipping helplessly. To reassure you that this kind of behavior is not a feature of this particular car, I tested another similar Highlander, and there was exactly the same result. The only option is to roll back a little, turn off the traction control system, and overcome the obstacle using the momentum. Despite the studded tires, the Highlander had problems at the top of the hill. Perhaps the traction control system could have helped in this situation, but the Highlander's driver decided to drive without assistance of the electronics. Contestant number 7 is the 2019 Mitsubishi Outlander with a 3-liter gasoline V6 on studded tires and an advanced all-wheel drive super all-wheel control system with dynamic torque distribution. A slight slip of the unloaded wheels and the front right wheel immediately begins to rotate. But due to insufficient grip on the slippery hill, the Outlander drifts to the left. Having stopped in the same place where the Honda Pilot had previously got stuck, the Mitsubishi continued driving with ease. Now, the test with hanging of the rear left wheel. The Outlander has stopped completely, and then it drove forward with minimal rotation of the unloaded wheel. A very good result. The final section, and one more diagonal suspension. You can hear how the engine revs up, The wheels make a slight slip, and then the Mitsubishi drives smoothly forward. Another stop with the rear wheel hanging, and then after stopping at the very beginning of the climb, the Outlander steadily drives up the hill with confidence. The next participant is the 2018 Skoda Kodiaq with a 2-liter turbocharged gasoline engine wearing studded winter tires. The driver throttles a little, and the electronics create more resistance on the slipping wheels, which allows transferring more torque to the loaded wheels. As a result, they start spinning and pull the car up the step with virtually no change in the driving line. Now the exercise with hanging the rear left wheel. Pay attention to the interesting algorithm of the traction control system. The driver presses on the gas pedal. The unloaded wheels abruptly stop after some spinning. You can hear how the engine sounds change with increasing revs, and the Kodiaq almost jumps forward. I wonder if we'll see the same in this more challenging section. The unloaded wheels slip at first, and then they stop until the electronics decides, and then the car jumps forward. The Volkswagen Tiguan, equipped with DSG, had exactly the same jump on this hill. You can watch it in detail in the next video, the Battle of Compact Crossovers. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss this video. At the exit from this position, we see the already familiar sequence again. Some wheel spin, a pause, and then driving forward. The Skoda slips a little on the slope, but there is not even a hint that the car may get stuck. Now it is the turn of the last, 9th participant of this big test, the 2013 Ford Explorer with a gasoline 3.5-liter engine on studded tires. The front right wheel started spinning prior to the beginning of the test. This was not the case for any of the participants. The driver pressed the gas pedal and the front right wheel starts spinning first. Then the rear right joined and again the front right, so that Ford slides to the left and then the Explorer drives to the next test. Full stop with the rear left wheel hanging. Slight slipping of the unloaded wheels and the car drives forward. A very good result. I wonder how the Ford will perform on a more difficult obstacle. The unloaded wheels make several rotations, and then the Explorer smoothly moves forward. After stopping with the rear wheel hanging, the Ford continued to drive until it reached a snowy hill. Despite the excellent performance of the traction control system, the tire grip was not enough to pull the large crossover up. Unfortunately, this hill remained unconquered for the Explorer. And now, let's check how the Hyundai Santa Fe will pass these same obstacles, because this car drove them the very first, when the obstacle was not so slippery. Perhaps that is why the Hyundai showed a fairly good result. Slipping of the unloaded wheels, and after the rotation of the front right wheel, the car drifts to the left. Still, the driving line was better during the previous attempt, but this time, there were less wheel rotations and more smoother driving. The Santa Fe passes the obstacle with hanging the rear left wheel in the same manner as during the first drive. Some minor slipping of the unloaded wheels and further confident driving forward without increase of the engine's RPMs. The car arrived at the most difficult part. The Hyundai's unloaded wheels slipped, and then the car smoothly drove forward until full stop with the rear left wheel lifted. The Santa Fe needs a little more revs to drive out of this position. Despite the changed condition of all obstacles, the Hyundai Santa Fe shows an excellent result. And how the compact Hyundai Tucson performed under the same conditions, you will find out in the next video. And so, we got to the second stage. The climb with 2 deep holes and a large amount of wet snow will create additional difficulties for the participants, not only during overcoming the obstacle, but even on the way to the starting point, which caused the sequence of passes to be lost. But basically, this did not greatly affect the result. You will see it all yourself now. The first to start is the Skoda Kodiaq. The car takes the starting position and drives into the pit with the front left wheel. And easily copes with this task. Now, let's complicate the conditions. The rear right wheel hangs in the air and the front left presses against the climb. The snow causes the loaded wheels to spin in the same place and the vehicle does not move forward. And this is the final phase of the obstacle. The rear left wheel is in the hole and the slope is very steep. The Skoda has all its wheels spinning and the tires don't have enough grip to drive the Kodiaq forward. The only option left is to conquer the obstacle using the momentum. The next participant is the Hyundai Santa Fe. The Santa Fe arrives at the first pothole, and it is visible how the loaded front right wheel is spinning in the same place and the car does not drive forward. The driver has now activated the inter-axle clutch lock. This helps the Santa Fe to reach the second phase of this obstacle. The rear left wheel is in the pothole and the car stopped at the point of maximum slope. It is not possible to drive up smoothly from this position. So, the Santa Fe takes a little acceleration and conquers the climb per most difficult line. Now, it's the turn of the Ford Explorer. It literally lacks just a little for the front left wheel to be in the pothole. And of course, the loaded right wheel slips helplessly in the same place. The driver has activated the snow driving mode. Let's see how this will affect the car's behavior. I do not see any significant difference, and the car is in the same place. The last option remains to drive up using the momentum. Now it's a different picture, and there is no need to suffer with smooth driving. Next is the Toyota Highlander, and already knowing about the peculiarities of its all-wheel drive system, the driver has locked the central clutch and turned off the traction control in order to conquer the obstacle in motion. What a very spectacular climb! Let's watch the replay from another camera. Now the Honda Pilot is driving. The car is stopped at the same point as the Ford Explorer. Even the forced locking of the inter-axle clutch did not change the situation. The last option is a minor rollback in order to drive the obstacle using the momentum. The Pilot drives to the right of the main line, and its left wheels practically do not fall into the pothole. just like the Skoda Kodiaq did, as well as the Ford Explorer. The next participant is the Chevrolet Captiva. The car is accelerating to drive into the first pothole. The rear right wheel lifts up as much as possible, and the loaded wheels make attempts to spin. But apparently in these conditions, there is too much load on them. Therefore, the Chevy is trying to change the line in order to conquer the ascent in the footsteps of the Ford and the Honda. But even here, only the unloaded wheels keep slipping, and the Captiva, for some reason, rolls back. The last option remains, driving using the momentum, and Chevrolet is at the top. The Subaru Tribeca has already excelled at the previous obstacle, but the driver does not lose his enthusiasm and wants to conquer this climb by driving smoothly. He safely reaches the first pothole by the simplest trajectory. You can see how both loaded wheels are spinning, and the Tribeca is slightly swept to the left. Obviously, the tires are the problem here. As soon as it gets warmer, I need to gather all the participants of this test once again on the dry ground in order to finally figure out whose all-wheel drive is cooler. Meanwhile, the Tribeca rolled back to conquer this climb with preliminary acceleration. Now, the Mitsubishi Outlander. The car drives up to the first pothole and it slides to the left on a more difficult line area. Active wheel slipping, it is visible how the loaded wheels are rotating, but it is too slippery. Then, the Outlander rolls back to try to conquer the climb per simpler line. Active wheel spin again, but unfortunately, under these conditions and at standard tire pressure, after full stop at this point, none of the participants could continue driving, and the Outlander is no exception. Therefore, the last option is to roll back to gain acceleration and conquer the hill using the momentum. The Mitsubishi drives extremely slow and even almost stops at the ill-fated pothole, but after a slight drift to the left, completes the conquest of the climb. The last participant is the Kia Sorento. The driver immediately takes a slight acceleration and conquers the climb by driving non-stop. Tires, tires, and once again, tires. The influence of tires on the behavior of cars was especially clearly visible during this test. Therefore, we need to do another test, but this time on the dry ground and on summer tires. Let's go back to the participants of this test. The Chevrolet Captiva and the Toyota Highlander have the most ineffective traction control system. And I am sure that even if all cars had the same tires, the result of these two cars wouldn't change. The Ford Explorer, the Honda Pilot, and the Subaru Tribeca have failed to show their full potential. Their traction control system is more efficient than the one of the Chevy and the Toyota. Remember how in difficult situations the loaded wheels of the Ford, the Honda, and the Subaru were actively spinning? But due to insufficient tire adhesion, they could not drive forward. The next group is the Kia Sorento, the Mitsubishi Outlander, the Skoda Kodiaq, and the Hyundai Santa Fe. These four cars demonstrated the best all-wheel drive system work. At the same time, I want to note that the Skoda's three-phase operation of the traction control system with a distinctive leap forward. The Outlander and the Sorento showed approximately the same result, with minimum slippage and smooth distribution of torque, which is certainly more preferable for an inexperienced driver. I deliberately did not single out the Hyundai Santa Fe and place it somehow separately, because in general its behavior did not differ much from the same Outlander or Sorento. But at the same time, the Santa Fe has the weakest engine among the test participants, and this car is the only one which could drive the second obstacle per most difficult line. But this is most likely thanks to the tires. Therefore, another test is needed in different conditions and on different tires.
Please let me know in the comment section below which car has surprised you and from which one you expected more. That's all for me. I'm Diaz. See you in the next video.